You've entered Bookstorm. Your favorite authors are here to dive down deep into their best-selling books. Stay tuned to brave the storm.
Well, welcome back to Bookstorm Podcast. I'm your co-host, Kristen Civiletto, and with me is Julia Noel Rose. And we're just so excited that you're tuning in from 105 countries and territories, all 50 states. And we know why. It is because we are bringing you the very best authors out there today. And today's no exception. We're just thrilled that internationally best-selling author Samantha Downing is joining us today.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. It's great to be here.
Well, we're so excited because we are talking about your new release, I'm Too Old for This, which is a really cool cover. It's, I think, a very original book and a very thrilling book. And in fact, several of our former authors that have come on the show have fantastic blurbs on the back. I just want to read one of these. Heather Gudenkoff says, the most entertaining thriller of the year. Once again, Downing has outdone herself with this smart, twisted, and downright sinister read. I love that. And B.A. Paris, twisty and compelling. And we agree.
Thank
Now,
you. Thank you.
absolutely. Well, we want to tell our listeners just a little bit about your background because they love to hear kind of the behind the scenes things. And I know that Julia was going to give us kind of a summary of the story without spoilers, which is really tricky. So, you are, as I mentioned, internationally best-selling thriller author. Your books have appeared in the Sunday Times and USA Today bestsellers list. My Lovely Wife, he started it for your own good, a twisted love story. So a lot of our readers are familiar with your other books, and I think they will not be disappointed with this new one. In fact, My Lovely Wife was nominated for numerous awards and won a very prestigious prize in France, which is really cool. So
Yeah,
congratulations.
thank you. Thank you so much. Yeah, this is book number 5. So here we are.
So I'd love to give our listeners some background into the book that we're going to be discussing today. So Too Old for This. In this thoroughly engrossing story, by the way, I was like flipping pages, having a good time, time is passing. We meet a fascinating woman of a certain age, Lottie Jones. And earlier in her life, after terrible accusations, alleged accusations, she changed her identity and she tucked herself away into a small town. Her most exciting nights are the weekly bingo games at the local church and gossiping with her friends. But then somebody unexpectedly knocks at her door, an investigative journalist named Plum Dixon. She's asking questions about Lottie's past and specifically her involvement with numerous unsolved cases. And Lottie can't be having that. But getting away with murder is hard enough when you're young. But now, let's just say that coming out of retirement is not as easy as one might expect. So it was really, really hard to, pull together something to say without spoiling things, because
Right.
you really come in heavy and hot right at the start, and it was awesome. So I just hope that, they pick it up and learn for themselves.
Exactly. Thank you. Thank you. That was a great summary of the book. Lottie does come in hot out from the first
She does.
chapter, so the story starts right away.
So this book to me was so unique because it was written from this perspective of an alleged serial killer and one who has had a lifetime to analyze why she kills. She seems to have this, a level of self-awareness where she kind of knows that it's almost like a vice. She compares it to sex. She compares it to going out and partying and kind of, just feeding into an indulgent side of her. But it's all processed with her really twisted mindset. And does that mindset will it always prevent her from recognizing and internalizing this wrongdoing? And maybe she'll never feel remorseful about it?
I think so. I mean, I think that for me, the key to writing a protagonist like this is to be in their mind, in their worldview.
Yeah.
Whatever, whoever your protagonist is, you're telling the story from their viewpoint. So if you are someone that believes murder is wrong and you would never commit it, you're coming from that viewpoint. She's coming from her viewpoint, which is that her murders in her mind are justified, and she does not waver from that. So it's a more like you're delving in because it's written in first person and because there are no other narrators. She's the only narrator in the book. You're in her mind the whole time. So you see how she thinks about it, how she justifies it in her head, what it does for her, because she has a lot of rage and she has a lot of anger, and her reasons for killing are really personal. It's about being judged and how people treat her, and people that sort of flip that switch in her where the anger comes out or where the rage comes out, and she feels better afterward. So I think that that's you may see conflicts in the way she thinks. You may not agree with the way she thinks, but she has a belief system and she sticks to it the whole time. There's no wavering on what she's doing.
One of the most interesting contrasts was her almost obsession with manners and etiquette, and it just how the other people around her were acting. And then it was like, oh, but I'm gonna take things into my own hands and play God, you know? So
Right.
that was interesting.
Exactly.
I love that.
Exactly. And I think those contradictions are what make characters in general interesting, is that they may say one thing and then you see them lie on the next page, and we're always contradictory. She's just a very extreme example of it.
That's a great summary because she takes things 10 times farther than we ever would. And we all get aggravated with this, the cable person or a utilities person and waiting online, whatever. She takes it that next step and that next step and next step. And it's really stressful and entertaining. So I want to ask you, Lottie has a very interesting conversation with her lifelong nemesis. And I'm not going to say too much more because I don't want to give anything away. But he offers her one last chance at being remembered. And it makes her think. And this kind of paraphrasing what she said. What will you be remembered for? What is enough to leave behind? One child, more than one, grandkids? Why do you think it's important for anyone to be remembered?
I think it's something everybody thinks about, or a lot of people in any case. Some people think about it their whole lives. Some people think about it when they get older, that we don't know what happens after this. We don't know what the afterlife is or isn't, but we want to all feel like we mattered, and that we're not just going to end up a picture in a photo album or online, and then that's all there is left of us. We want to make a mark and say, I was here. And so that comes into play with her when she's with her arch nemesis, that it is something that she does consider, possibly not as heavily as some other people, but it is a thought, when your grandchildren, but maybe she'll never meet her great grandchildren. Are they going to talk about her? What are they going to say? Will she be kept alive by her family? Um, will she be remembered for being an accused murderer? You just don't know. You don't know how it's going to play out.
Yeah.
So I think it's a very human part of her to think about that. I think it's something people can relate to, a very full life. And she has family, and she has a social circle, and she compartmentalizes these things in her life. Her family is very separate from her extracurricular activities. So she has a way of just sort of slotting them into parts of her brain. And I think that the idea of how you're remembered is just one of the many very human things about her that people can relate to, and that make her seem like a real person and not a monster.
Yeah. Well, especially since a lot of the things that she did do are things that people are often remembered for very fondly. Being a good mother, going to church, baking for people, making a delicious meal. And
Presents for grandkids. Like
right,
she
exactly.
wanted them to think of her later.
Mhm. Yeah, she definitely did. She's definitely strategic in trying to make herself important. And I think everybody does that. They may not be as strategic as she is, but I think everybody can relate to that in some sense, because we just don't know what's going to happen after, and maybe this is it. So what do we leave behind other than stories people may or may not tell about you?
In a very similarly calculated way, she is very good at twisting facts until her victims can't figure out what is true or what is not true. Even the people that come question her or that she engages with, she's almost like a very unreliable narrator if we weren't in her head. And does she enjoy this level of deception? Is that a part of the thrill for her? Or
I
is
think
it like
she
a
does.
necessity?
Well, I think it's both, but I think she does enjoy it. Murder is a lot easier to do than it is to get away with. And the getting away with it is what necessitates her doing all of this and telling stories and keeping it straight. And it's very difficult. It's difficult when you're young, let alone when you're older and your short-term memory may be a little sketchy. And so she does have to keep it straight, and she has to work really hard to keep it straight, which is one of the reasons why she retired. Getting away with it becomes more and more difficult with science and technology, and it's not an easy process. And but she sort of slips right back into her old ways, and she knows what she has to do. It's just a matter of doing it and doing it right. So I think I think there's a point in the book where she even says it's a little bit fun, trying sort of getting over on people that way.
I want to pick up there and go a little deeper on something you just said because she makes a mistake in the book that she knows her younger self would never have made. And I wanted to ask you about that because she has an interesting outlook on aging. Like she's doing the things that a person at her age should think about doing. Where should I live? Do I need additional care? But, instead of settling into that as a mother and a revered grandmother, she really is kind of, thinking, yes, some things have changed because of my age, but there's some parts of me that have not changed.
Mhm.
And so she doesn't settle into that. And I just wanted to ask you a little bit about her perspective on aging, because it also seems contradictory, but also consistent with this twisted mind.
Right. I mean, I think she's like a lot of people of that age where she knows things are changing and she should change, but also it's really hard to accept. So at a personal level, it's you also don't want to sort of accept and sort of admit defeat and say, I really shouldn't live alone anymore. So it's psychologically really hard to get there, even if you logically know there are some next steps that need to be taken. She is alone. She lives alone. She's in a big house with more space than she needs. She's thinking about potential care in the future, or just even having someone there to help if something goes wrong, and that she wouldn't be left alone at the bottom of the stairs in a house with nobody coming around to help her. So she's thinking of things like this, but they're not pleasant things to think about. And for some people, they don't ever want to think about it, and they just refuse. And other people are like her and start to make plans, but it's not an enjoyable process for anybody to admit you're becoming weaker in the mind or in the body or what have you. So I think that those conflicts and those contradictions are very, um, again, another very human part of her, of knowing you need to do it, but not exactly happy about the situation.
Yeah. And her son voices a lot of those concerns in the book and I love the role that her son plays, almost like everything's normal. This is my mother who I care about. She raised me. I want to make sure
Yeah.
she's safe. And it's very interesting, very well done how you wove all that together.
Yeah, he
Uh,
really tries to be a good son. He's also a lawyer in a different state. So there's conflicts there of like, should he pack up his whole life and move up there? He hasn't offered to do so yet, and she doesn't know if she wants to live down where he lives because she has this whole life here. So there's a constant, I'm trying to take care of you, but I'm not really ready to, give up my life here for you, a kind of a thing. So I think that's a lot of what Gen X is going through right now with older parents
yeah.
and um, baby boomers and the generations that are getting older and what they need and what their family's willing to do. So I tried to make that as relatable as possible for a lot of people out there.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I'm a lawyer
Because
with an aging parent.
she
Yes,
is a serial killer, so there's a lot that's not relatable
that
about
whole
her.
right. I was laughing because I'm a lawyer with an aging parent, and I was thinking to myself, thank God my mom does not have those suspicions following her around.
That's so funny. It's something and this is just like a more of a last minute thought, but while I was reading, I was thinking about how people have always joked about writers Googling things, for their book, how do you clean up blood and how do you clean up a body? And I was curious if you would be willing to share just any of your research or some of your research that went into this, because you wove an emotional aspect with a very like psychopathic, sociopathic aspect. So she's living this life, but she also is not remorsefully, going around committing a lot of crimes. So I just was so curious about your process and what kind of thought went into this character.
Yeah, I think that a lot of times we imagine psychopaths as being so emotionally detached, not having empathy, that they would not be able to carry on a normal life, but many of them do. And psychopathy is also a spectrum now. It's not just an on or off switch. There is um, a whole in the DSM for the antisocial behavior disorder. This is a spectrum, so not everybody is all empathy or no empathy. There's a strand in the middle that connects them. So there are there are serial killers at least who have had families and kids, and no one suspected anything until they were caught. Um, these days, it's very difficult to be a serial killer with technology and science the way it is, to be one at the level of, say, a Gacy or a Bundy. Um, they would get caught right away if they were killing today with the same methods. So I think for me, it was more about she compartmentalizes and she has on the one side this normal persona, but it's not a persona, it really is who she is. She just has another side of her that's very dark, so she's just got 2 very different sides to her, where she would protect her family and her friends at all costs, but at the same time, other people aren't don't get that same treatment from her. So, I think it took probably years of research just in serial killers in general, and reading about them and watching how they're depicted. And you have characters like Dexter who are so popular now. Um, that serial killers, when you really look at them, real ones that have existed, they do run the gamut on what kind of lives they were leading. Some are loners, some are not. Some have great jobs, some are barely employed. So like the rest of people out there, they tend to run the gamut. And there are tons of psychopaths who don't kill at all and they're not violent. So they are out there living normally, and you might not even you ever know that they're a psychopath or on the spectrum of psychopathy.
Well, I also loved that you chose to place this character on the later end of the age spectrum as well, because that just added an entire new layer of intrigue and problem solving and like, just different things. It was very layered. So,
A whole different
so
level of experience she has
exactly.
of been there, done that, but also, wait, now I have to deal with things like traffic cameras and
Yes.
and GPS and phones and
Or possibly breaking
computers,
her hip when she's in an unfavorable
or
position.
that as well. Exactly.
Oh, too good. So my last question for you is, and I know your book is just coming out and you should be absolutely basking in, just the release and all of that stuff, but do you have anything on the radar that you're willing to talk about to our listeners? Either something you're thinking about or working on, or even something unrelated to books at large?
I have a couple things that I'm working on. I'm not sure which. Not a plotter. I'm a pantser. So when I write, I just sort of wing it and I see what takes off. So I have a couple ideas, but I don't have anything set right now. Um, let's see. I think I'm probably reading a lot of the same books that other people have. I can say that I have read Stacey Willingham's new book that's coming out at the end of August, and it is fabulous. I love her work. She's one of my favorites. So for everybody out there looking for a late summer book, she is great. And I am currently reading actually a little bit older book, not older, last year, Bright Young Women by Jessica Knoll, which is so interesting because it's from the victim of a serial killer point of view, not the serial killer itself. So she's such a great writer, and it's very interesting to see her dehumanize the serial killer completely in that story and focus entirely on who his victims were. It's that it could not be more different than mine, both in writing and her level of writing, and it's far more literary than mine is, but it's a really interesting read.
I think
Very
you are the
interesting.
first author that has told us what they're in the middle of reading. Like,
Yeah,
am I
really?
right?
Yeah.
Like, yes.
Yeah.
And now I feel like that's a question we have to ask because I'm like, oh, I will be writing that down and checking that out.
But first, we're going to tell people that they need to pick up Too Old for This, because this is a
Absolutely.
fantastic read. It really is. It's one of those
Thank you.
you start reading and then you read a little more, and then pretty soon it's 2 o'clock in the morning.
Yes,
And
that's what
and
happened to me.
yeah, and I'm going to make our listeners laugh, because when you see this cover, you see a woman and she's got gray hair, and you're looking at the back of her. And when I finished this book, I was out at a public place where I was the only person there when I started the very end of the book. I closed it, turned around, and I saw a woman who matched this picture sitting behind me. And she was not there when I started. And I can't even believe how scared I was when I saw that, but I just thought that was an absolute trip. So I think our readers are going to be thoroughly entertained and thrilled.
I agree.
We're really excited for you. It's a really good book. And I want to tell our listeners how to find you and find this book. You have a great website, samanthadowning.com. You're on Instagram, on Facebook, and we wish you all the success in the world. We hope you come back in the future.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it, and thank you for all your kind words.
Absolutely.
I hope everybody enjoys
We do too. We know they will.
it.
Take care now.
Thank you.
All right. Well, seeing the character come alive to you was honestly too funny. I remember that when that happened, weeks ago after you read, and I was like, oh my gosh, get out of there.
Oh, I did. Trust me, after taking a picture of her.
Or just don't piss her off.
Anyway, I agree. This is entertainment. This book's going to do really well. I want to tell our listeners about some other authors we have coming up. We've got Gareth Brown with The Society of Unknowable Objects, Mary Alice Monroe, Where the Rivers Merge, Daniel Silva, An Inside Job, Don Winslow, The Final Score, Lou Berney with Crooks, A Family Portrait, Joanne Harris with the prequel to Chocolat with Vienne, Christina Baker Klein and Ann Burt with Please Don't Lie. We've got a long list of others that we're going to start unrolling in the next few weeks. They are fantastic authors, and we are loving these books. So listeners, you know where to find us at BOOKSTORMPodcast.com. We're on various social media places. You can find us at Instagram, on X, on YouTube. And we just hope that you keep coming back, because you know your favorite authors are here live on Bookstorm Podcast.